I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. First thing I'd like to do is take a roll call to determine the members who are present. Jane Healy.
Here.
Don Little.
Don Little here.
Paul Healy.
Here.
We're advised that Mark Rosen will be absent. Don Walters. Don Walters. Okay. Chuck Griffin.
Here.
Tom O'Brien.
Here.
Glenn Richards. Glenn Richards. Well, we have 6 present.
Yeah, Glenn is with us. Glenn, you might need to unmute.
Yep, I'm just gonna set up take you off speaker here. Hang
Okay.
on.
Thanks, Glenn. Okay, so we're all set. So we know Mark won't be with us, and Don may be joining us later. I don't know.
But Don is on now.
What was that?
Don is on now. He's just no visual or audio.
Dawn, if you're connected, could you say hello? Dawn appears to be here, but maybe he's still connecting his mic.
Okay. Well, we'll find out the first vote, I guess. Good. For those of you who this is the first deliberation meeting that you've attended and had a vote in, I'd just like to review quickly the process that we go through, and then we'll hit it all later. I want to summarize. We're going to be working off that printed worksheet that has the applications listed and various empty columns for various rounds, where often we have to go through multiple rounds and move money around in order to get a consensus of majority of the committee on not only the recommended applications, but also the amounts to be recommended for each. After that, we will look at the budget, the proposed budget that we have, and determine what the majority of the committee thinks is a safe holdback, since we don't like all the money that we are expected to have available go out the door with recommendations when there could be something that comes up that shortens that amount. So we have traditionally put aside a little savings account, which often is a lot more savings than we need, and it gets rolled forward to the next year, but it keeps everybody feeling confident. The way we try to focus our attention often is to preliminarily go through with a show of hands, going through each application with the question, raise your hand if you would not recommend any funds in any amount for that application, such that if we get 5 or more members that would not recommend any funds for that application, we put it aside as a likely non-recommended application, and we come back to it at the end if there is a need to bring it back into the mix. Otherwise, it's voted as the majority has determined, which is no recommendation, no funds. And the manner in which we go through to get to yes it is often magical, but it always works. It should be very pleasant this year, since for the first time I can remember, there are available funds in excess of requests. And generally, we're looking at requests that are 150 to 200% of available funds. Okay. Remember that we're in evaluating each application. We are applying the printed criteria that we've developed. We will also, if necessary, discuss appropriate categories for the individual application. And it can be more than one category, as the categorization can sometimes have an effect, because the categories of historic preservation, affordable housing, and open space are required to receive, either by appropriation or by reserve, a minimum of 10% of the available funds. So I don't think that that's going to become a question, but that would be at the back end. We look at that to make sure that we've covered the statutory requirement. Okay. First thing I'd like to do on the, it's not on the printed agenda. It's just it's an administrative discussion, and it has to do with whether there are any of the members who, for any project, would find a need to recuse themselves from discussion and vote on that project, or if they don't find a need, if they have solicited advice from the state on whether or not there's a perceived conflict of interest, what the results of that inquiry to the state were. So I'll throw that out there. Is anyone in need of having discussion about a potential recusal or a answer from the state on potential conflict of interest?
Michael, could you just, this is Glenn, could you just give a common example of what might cause that? I don't.
Well, if an individual member of the committee has a personal financial interest that could be affected by the grant or non-grant of a requested amount of money.
Right. Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. In the past, there's been one time that I recall where the member of the committee was a direct abutter to a property that was the subject of an application for development.
Thanks.
Okay.
It is Don Little.
Yes, Don.
Yeah, I'm a direct abutter to the YW at Hillside, so I'll probably recuse myself for that vote.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. We can move on from there.
Chair, just that I just wanted to note, I think Don Walters is with us. Don, I think if you press *6, you could unmute and say hello.
Hi, this is Don Walters.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Don. Welcome.
Hi. Not sure why I had technical difficulties. My apologies. So I'm on my phone. I can get in on the computer.
Okay. Good. All right. There has been in your packet circulated a update from a joint update from the Parks Commission and the Parks Department, having to do with the Parks Department application It's a single page letter dated May 18, where they request that the requested scope of that project, that having to do with the, what's the name? What are we calling that one? Let's see. That's the
The Bartlett Mall Frog Pond
Frog
improvement.
Pond improvements as opposed to the restoration of the Swan fountain. The request is that the scope be enlarged, or shall we say made more flexible, such that if it is determined as this project evolves that more design engineering work is needed in order to flesh out exactly how that the work is going to fit in with the overall park improvement plan there, that any recommended amount be allowed to be used for this design engineering work, should it be found to be needed, and with any balance then being applied to the actual work that is determined to be done.
Mike, I would also note that we have Liz Reed, the Parks Director, has raised her hand.
Okay, and as I understand it, the concept of this is that obviously the Frog Pond improvements are part and parcel of a larger design and plan for that whole Bartlett Mall area, and that the specific engineering on how to clean the water and on what design of the curbing, the hard curbing would be on the pond edge, can change as they continue to develop design ideas and consult additional design engineers. If I'm wrong, perhaps either Chuck or Lise could correct me.
Oh, that's the case. We don't have the final engineering report back. They're looking at various alternatives. So we need flexibility to move the money internally from one aspect of it to another aspect of it. Yeah, that would be nice to have that flexibility. And secondly, I just wanted to speak up. I know that you know, Mr. Chairman, but I live next to the Bartlett Mall, but I've submitted the documents and received the approval confirmation from the mayor that I'm legit to discuss the Bartlett Mall.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question. Is there any clue as to how much this extra engineering or design, how much that might run to? Is there, well, I guess the question is, what if that engineering comes back and it makes the rest of the work of the Frog Pond improvements cost prohibitive?
I can't hear.
Given a clear.
I can actually speak to that as well.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Paul.
Oh.
If you're looking directly at where it looks like your camera is, you come in a little bit clearer. But if you move away at all, I think it's harder to hear.
Okay, is this better?
That is a little better for me. I don't know about other folks.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm happy to speak to that question if the committee would like.
Okay.
I can as well, Lise, either one.
Lise, you spoke first, so you go ahead.
Well, at this point, we have not solicited proposals for the design. It is likely that any further design engineering would come in well below our request. actually the proposal from one of the consultants that we're working with now on this new approach is that once this new concept is developed, then they would submit a proposal for design engineering. So it's really too early for us to know how much that design engineering would cost. And I really wouldn't want to hazard a guess. But again, I'm confident in saying that it would be well below the amount that we have requested, and that any balance remaining could still be well utilized toward either the drilling of the well, the bathymetric survey certainly, and purchasing of granite, which all so far are pretty well working into the approach that is being developed.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, Mike, this is Don Walters. I have several questions.
Sure.
If I could go to the letter that was signed by Kimberly and Lise, if I may, the third paragraph, the first sentence, it says, in our original application, we asked for a bathymetric survey. So I appreciate that's what I would consider services. This is 2 shallow wells to act as a water source for 5 pan. So I am considering, and please interrupt me if I'm wrong in my assumptions, please. It says the 2 shallow wells will be installed. So whatever preliminary work someone has to do, but they will actually be installed, or is that just engineering or design? This is 2 shallow wells. So could you clarify that, please?
I can do that. Thank you. So this is Kim Turner, the chair of the Parks Commission. So we had a preliminary meeting with our design team last week, and we will be getting the full report within the next week or so from them. And this is a full feasibility study. That feasibility study is going to run the gamut of solutions everywhere from dredging, which we know will likely be cost prohibitive for the city, to lining the pond, to moving some of the sediment around. And all of these potential solutions will require, we know that they are all being recommended that we have a secure edge around the pond, and that's for 3 reasons. 1 is to prevent sediment input from the slopes. 2 is to limit access into the pond, and 3 is to help potentially raise the depth of the pond so that we can have a colder water within the pond that doesn't have sunlight permeating all the way down to the bottom. We know that regardless of what the final sort of means to get the water cleaned up, that the secure edge is going to be recommended no matter what. So that's why we feel very strongly that the granite edge is going to be important. Number 2, with regard to the wells, again, if we line the pond, if that winds up being the solution, which is one that we're sort of focused on right now, it's potential that we will cut off the underground water source that exists in the pond right now. So we will need water from the shallow wells. Even if we decide not to line the pond and encapsulate that water source, and we just decide to move some of the subsoil around, it is recommended by our water engineer that we will likely want the shallow wells as backup sources for waters, regardless of which of these solutions we decide to move down. So again, the reason for asking for the flexibility and these very specific elements is because we feel very strongly in our work we've been doing with the consultants that each one of these will be necessary. And what this is going to allow us to do is have a full gamut of solutions that we can pivot between very easily. If we get into the field and decide that one path we're going down needs to slightly pivot, we feel very strongly that what we've requested within the CPC grant application will allow us to do that pivoting so that we can continue on with the work. Does that answer your question?
No, I probably should have. Asked it a bit clearer. My apologies. In your initial application, as stated in the first sentence of the letter to us, it said, we asked for a bathymetric survey. I have no question there. It says, 2 shallow wells to act as a water source. Was that, assuming that was correct, was that going to be to install 2 shallow wells, whatever permitting needed in design work, and you were going to install 2 shallow wells? Is that what it was, or was that simply design, or was the actual installation of 2 shallow wells with the attendant pumps, electricity to it, et cetera, et cetera? That was my specific question.
Yes, so we submitted a cost estimate for the actual installation of the wells.
Okay. That's great, thank you. And then the last question is, and I think this just again to clarify, and it says it's just, and I think we discussed that at the first meeting we had. It said the acquisition of granite stones. That would simply be for the acquisition of granite stones. That does not include any of the work that we need to prepare any type of subgrade where the stones will be, as well as actually installing there. You would simply acquire the granite stones and stockpile them somewhere, or am I mistaken in that sentence?
Correct. And Chuck will speak on this a little bit further, but the reason for that is that that is a very long.
That's okay. I feel bad belaboring. I'm sorry for being very specific to these, just so I understand the scope. I'm sorry. And then for the time being, it says in the months since we submitted our application, we have been working with a consultant team on cleanup of the pond. So I'm assuming that the word, I don't know what cleanup means, but I'm assuming the cleanup means all the things you just said, Kimberly, that it's going to include whether we line it, whether we do this, et cetera. That's what it is. And as a result of that, you may need different surveys. You may not need wells. You don't know what you need, but as you said, you're fairly confident, very confident that as a minimum, there'll be some type of granite stones required for the 2-3 reasons you mentioned.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, thank
yes.
you. Sorry to hold you all up.
Okay, not at all, Don. Thank you. Any other questions on the letter? I think it might be appropriate right now for Chuck. You had some brief answers to questions that were raised at the time of presentation of the fountain aspect of the commission and the Parks Department applications.
Yes, I couldn't speak to it last time because I didn't have that clearance about conflict of interest, Andy. So these are answers. Next slide. As you know, we have this problem around the pond of unequal water height. It's been suggested in every report that's been made, and no city does this, to my knowledge, anywhere, is to have an unframed pond. Next slide. This was taken from my front yard, looking clear across the pond. 2 children were playing in it, clear up to their waist. Obviously, it's cold water. One was still in it when I took this picture. This is a very big health hazard if you know anything about this situation. And I tried to get there and they were gone by the time I could get to that point. But we cannot have children playing in it. We can't have it be going back to the idea that there's some sort of beach here. If you need to go to the beach, you need to go to the ocean or some other location. We can't supervise a beach. Next. This gets into it with both you don't need to read all this, but Charles Elliott talking about this edge that goes up and down and the fact that it's a problem. And then you had Shercliffe, we have the 2 greatest landscape architects of their day here, both talking about needing granite curbing around the edge of the pond. Next, please, Andy. And my concern is about this. Most of the things involved with fixing this pond, even though we don't have the final report, they're readily available. This is not a scarcity issue, generally speaking. The things that are time constraints are the granite, because it has to be quarried. I want it sawn on all 6 sides and finished, and some of it will be etched with the history of the pond. And the fountain, we need to have enough time to have it removed, repaired, treated, brought back and set in place, and a crane not used. A crane would increase the price drastically. Next slide. So here's a cross section. You have a grass slope indicated by the triangle, a packed gravel walkway, the granite shown to scale. And then the red is the membrane that we're likely to have at the bottom of the water that comes up and behind the granite. And a major concrete base looking right now of price 3 foot high and 20 inches wide. Next. And this is the price from the low bidder and local firm here in Newburyport Memorial. And these are the prices all updated. This company, which is a Rock of Ages, but the quarries and just over the border in Canada, raised their price on May 1st. So these sizes are accurate. And the numbers are mainly for me to find out what it costs per lineal foot with major orders of both a 20 by 30 tall and a 20 by 15, so I could adjust the design to how much money we have. And then I have a quote. Next slide, Andy. We have a quote. Here's the sawing of the stone in another situation. Next slide, Andy. And this is Boston North, their quote. This gets back to the question raised earlier. There obviously is an excavation for this footing. And you can see the different costs here, the concrete and the steel for reinforcement of it. The pump, we're going to have to pump the concrete, rebar, etc., labor and equipment to set it. And then they're going to set the stones and put the membrane in place and set the stones level to a laser. The crucial thing in all of this is that none of this can be allowed to move. If it's going to be beautiful, the stones weigh about 4,500 pounds each if they're the seat height, and they'll be pinned end to end, not through the membrane. And so I think it'd be quite a remarkable situation, but that costs us $200,000 to go clear around. It's 1,200 lineal feet currently to go around the pond. Next. And there's an example. I did this just working up an idea of the corporate memory. It keeps being forgotten about Frog Pond, about how important it is. So my idea is to put it on the top of the blocks. This is to scale if the blocks are 6 foot long, 20 inches wide. And you could have a story here about bullfinch and imagery and that sort of thing. So this way the corporate memory would be the seat itself. And we could also incorporate, if we choose to, some lighting around the pond at the walkway level with this concept. Next, please. So if you take an example of it, if we had, there's two different prices here, 300,000 if it's just a curb, so you walk straight in, or if it's up at seat height, say 15 inches or so, be 600,000. Installation's the same, what they're charging. So the number here to put the surround and to set it in place and foundations is between 500 and 800,000. So if we look at some incomes we might get here, if we had a fundraiser and could get a couple grand for 200 blocks, we could probably raise the amount of money to have 44% of it could be raised to seat height. It's just an example. I don't mean anything more than just looking at it, but it's by far the single major expense to fix. I mean, we think so far it's the single highest expense to fix, well, the whole Bartlett Mall, but Frog Pond in particular. Next. The fountain is large. If you've gone out when it's frozen, you'll see how unwieldy it is. It's a major piece put together with small sections, at least the lower bowl is. It's one fountain actually sitting on top of another. Next. There's quite a few steps to it. And I've been down and talked to them 3 times in Raleigh and got the proposal we have, which has some flexibility within it, but they have to remove it, which takes a crew of 8 men, and it's going to take at least a day to do, probably a good deal more. And then there's going to be broken parts. They're going to need to braze those fittings, which frequently happens with these old fountains, and then clean off the foreign material. It has a very elaborate finish, which ends up having urethane in it, and it encapsulates the steels. So this is just gray iron. This is trying to turn into powder, and this prevents that. The Navy uses this in their best locations where they need it. and reassemble it. Then I wanted the price to set it up in a public place to help with fundraising, and then to reinstall it in Frog Pond. And then one of the points that was raised, someone was questioning whether aeration could be done. I don't think that's the primary reason. It'll aerate the pond to some extent, but I think the principal reason to do this is the beauty it gives to Frog Pond. It's such a major piece of the Currier and Ives feel of the place, I think. Next. That's the look, and it comes in different colors, and it's done on the inside and outside with all these different coats. It can look garish to you there, but it won't be. Next. And so what that does for, we have the money for this. As you know, we have 300 grand raised for that and some of the walks, and you were instrumental in that. And we're trying to get to this picture on the right. That's the way that area used to look. There's 23 people in that picture on a day, and we have the money now for the drive to come down, and we're going to reshape the bank on the right. Anyhow, we hope to get that work started this year. I thank you. That's it, Andy, I think.
Okay. I'm assuming that the fountain application stands, in terms of scope, stands as is, and the adjustment in scope would apply to the improvements application.
Yeah,
That's
I wish
correct.
that, Kim, you want to answer that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. Good. Anybody else have any questions about those two applications and what we've just talked about?
This is Jane. I have a quick question on slide 11. Andy, are you able to go back to the presentation?
I am, yeah, sorry, just take a second.
That's fine.
Slide
Thank you.
11, yep.
Yeah, Chuck, wasn't sure. I know it says example at the top, but on income, the CPC 2021, the 132 is less than the 186 that's being asked for. I just want to make sure that like where that came from, or if it's truly just an example. And then the other nonprofit, if you have, or if you're currently seeking additional funding for other nonprofits, it would be helpful to know.
Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I believe the 186 includes the survey and the fountain and the wells.
That's right. I'm sorry. So that's just for the granite.
Yes.
And any other fundraising, the other nonprofit, has that already?
I can't talk about that yet, but I'm comfortable that that number can be reached. I don't know. I probably shouldn't have put it in, but if I can't name it, I probably shouldn't show it, right?
No, that's fine. All right. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Mike, this is Don Walters again. I do have a question. It really is related to several of the applications. So I might as well throw it out now, and perhaps you or Andy or others on the call in the meeting may be able to answer it. For some reason, I seem to get the DLS, the Division of Local Services, and they have each month or whenever these sectors discussions on the Community Preservation Act. And as we know, there's three things that we can do, and I'm focusing right now on historic resources, and this may just be the elevator speech. So I'll caveat with saying this may not be. There may be some more nuances, but in this newsletter that's put out by the Massachusetts DLS, it says the historic resources, the two key points to me, it says that is listed on the state register of historic places or has been determined by the local historic preservation commission to be significant in the history, archaeology, architecture, culture. So to me, this seems to be a bright line test, irrespective of whether we think it's historic or not. If this statement is correct, I'm not saying it is, but there's probably better experts on this call than me. It says you either have to be registered by the state historic or the local historic preservation commission, not the historic commission, right? It says local historic preservation commission, and perhaps there's been some case law on that. So, and we don't have to discuss it right now, but before we go to the city council on this, because I know some city councils receive the same newsletter, I just wanted to perhaps put that as a placeholder. And I think sometime during this meeting, the next one, we should probably understand what this means, or perhaps my understanding is incorrect, Mike. Thank you.
This is Andy for the Office of Planning and Development. I would appreciate the reference to that particular bulletin, I guess, from the DOR, but I would ask if there's any ability to send that stuff before the meeting. We could take a look at the language just to make sure we're on the same page about what it's indicating. I'm not convinced that that's an issue here, but I'm happy to take a look at that bulletin and see what's in there and confer with our finance director.
We'll do it, Andy. I just sent it to you.
Okay, thanks. I'll peruse it right now.
As far as how we have operated in the past on historic preservation, when it isn't a registered site, we have always received from the Newburyport Historical Commission a statement that it is of importance in the second category that you mentioned in terms of making it appropriate to receive the CPC funds. I'd be happy to take a look at that information that you just sent to Andy. But I think that's correct, and I'm not aware of any issue. I haven't read about any issue where the historical commission gives that certification, if you will, as opposed to the some other historic preservation commission.
Understand, Mike, and I just sent it to you too. And again, I just want to be sure that people smarter than me get it. And I'll appreciate that I may be having too narrow of a definition or little interpretation. There may be some elasticity in these, but that's why I sent it to you, Mike and Andy. So okay, I know it's in your good hands, as Allstate says.
Thank you, Don. I did take a quick scan through the language that's in that bulletin that was distributed. I don't see anything in there. Again, just reading through the verbiage in there with typical references to the statute and the types of projects and that are eligible and so forth. It seems pretty, I think, expansive, the breadth of things that the CPC can recommend funding for and that the council can actually appropriate. And I read this as making a reference to the types of things that might fit in that category, but I don't think it's a prohibition, perhaps as narrowly as you might have read that. But again, I'm happy to confer further with this, with the chair and with you and others.
No problem. I wish it didn't come across my desk, candidly. Thank you, guys. Sorry for any hold up.
No hold up. I just would like to, if there are any more questions, on this aspect of the parks applications. What I see this is that an application which has not yet been deliberated or voted on it's been requested that its request be amended, not as to any different amount, but just as to scope and expanding that scope. As such, and I'm throwing this out there for a collective comment. I believe that we just can accept without vote that this is what the applicant wants, and vote yes or no. That's on the application with that amended scope in it. We deem it to be the application to include this letter. If folks feel different and would like to discuss and vote on accepting the letter, I'd love to hear that, and I'm open to it. Anybody?
Well, I would think it'd be better just to have two votes on it. One, taking this in as part of the record, and then second on the funding or not funding of the project.
And we could vote on that when we deliberate on that particular project.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Anybody else? Okay, I'd be happy to acquiesce in Paul's suggestion. It's a careful one, and we can do it that way.
This is, sorry, this is Glenn. I was sitting here just scanning through my sent emails and so forth to see if I could find it, because I seem to remember that the Historical Commission did send a letter of support for this application. Does that ring a bell with you, Michael?
It does. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe with all of the applications relative to the historic preservation on this docket that we have those acknowledgements and letters of support. So,
yeah.
Okay. Good. Then,
Michael,
yes.
I believe all the ones that I'm familiar with here are on the National Register. I believe. I know Bartlett Mall and
I think that's probably true as
and
well.
I think the Cushing House is definitely
The Cushing
Huston's
House.
I think
Yeah, they're all listed in one way or another.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's move on to talk about the budget that we have to work with, and you've seen the breakdown of the components, and that it is in fact pleasantly more than the draft budget we were looking at two meetings ago. And the reason for that is they've got some actual numbers in there, and the big increase is that the state has predicted we end up with a 32% match as opposed to a 12 to 17% match, which is what we were looking at before. And so that we can have some confidence in that. And if the past is any indication, the activity in the registry of deeds between now and when it's actually dispersed to the cities and towns, it would be north of that amount in the match. So what we have, I also clarified before the meeting, I don't know if everybody was here or not, if anybody's wondering, where it says that there's money that's already spoken for in available funds, and that has to do primarily with the two bonds that are outstanding, the stadium and the Cherry Hill bonds, and that those are the actual numbers that will need to be spent on retiring principal and interest for those bonds from the fund going forward for this next cycle. The question that I clarified was that some of you may be aware that the Fuller Field, which we approved bonding for or recommended bonding for a couple cycles back, has worked its way through approval at the city council, but none of that bond will not yet go out on the street, and there would not be any payments required from our funds for this cycle here that we're determining. We'll probably see it next year. Okay, so basically what we've got in total available funds is 1.2686. And there's an annotation here that there is an existing reserve account, which is the open space reserves, presently at $629,965. So looking at that 2.268, the suggestion that I've always felt comfortable with is that we agree on a savings. We set aside some percentage of that to not appropriate, so that we know that it's there if we have somehow overshot the mark and the money that we actually get is less than what what I think are good numbers, but they're estimated numbers are on our budget. In the past, we have done anywhere from 4 to 10%. We just open it to discussion, what people are feeling comfortable with, and have a vote on what we want to pull out of that available funds and not allocate to any project or any reserve. Paul, you always have a good idea on this.
I would say 50,000.
50? Okay. Do I
This
hear?
is Jane. I had the same number in mind.
And you guys haven't been talking. Okay. All right. And any other suggestions? Good. Well, Paul, you want to make that a motion and Jane can second?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we set aside 50,000 from the available funds. And
Okay.
Leave that in reserves.
Okay.
That's a second.
Okay.
I didn't hear a lot of that motion. Could someone repeat it? It faded in and out.
I had the same, thank you.
Paul, could you repeat it?
Yeah, no, the motion was to set aside 50,000 from the available funds and put those aside in reserve.
Thank you.
Jane, do you second?
I do.
Jane seconds. Okay. Any further discussion? I'll do a roll call. Jane Healy,
Yeah.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
I had to believe it. I had to dash away for just a second to close windows in my car. Is this the same as number 6 in your spreadsheet? No. Was this a different reserve we're talking about?
No. This is we're looking at the total funds available at 2.268.
Right.
And the motion is to not allocate or spend 50,000 of that
I
and
see.
leave it in the account.
Right. Because we don't looks like we're not going to need it. Exactly. Is that right?
And it
My
also,
hearing may be going, but you've said several times 2.268. You mean 1.268, correct?
yeah, I meant one. Yeah, I'm a big spender here. No, 1.268.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. It's been
Nice to
a
have-
long day. Yeah.
Could put $1 million in the reserve.
Okay, so Glenn, you have it clear?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, and your vote is a yes. Okay, and chair votes yes. So the available funds we're working with would be down to 1.218. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't that nice that it fits into the amount requested? Okay.
And how coincidental.
How coincidental is that? Okay. All right. Okay. Deliberations on the applications. I think rather than talk about total dockets and rounds 1, 2, and 3, it may be appropriate. And again, we're just talking about how we're going to handle this administratively and procedurally going through. And happy for ideas. But we could start at the top and just discuss and vote on each application, with the proviso that I'm first going to go through and ask if anybody will raise their hand on each one to indicate that they would not recommend it in any amount. So we proceed that way?
Okay.
Okay. So I think we can go with show of hands because this is informal, just for purposes of obtaining a focus. I'm going to go through the list just as it's on the agenda. And I would like you to indicate a raised hand if you would not recommend any amount for that project. Okay, and Caitlin, if you could do a hand count on these. Okay, yep. YWCA at Hillside, hands raised, please.
I'm sorry, hand raised if we're opposed, or hand raised if.
Hand raised if you would not recommend any amount.
Right,
for that
that's what
project.
that's what I thought. Thanks.
Okay, so
Mike, this is Andy. I was just wondering, just for efficiency, if it would make sense to ask if members want to identify a project that that's the case for, that they have concerns about. Again, just thinking the inverse, noting how much funds are available this year. You know.
all right, we'll shortcut it. I don't mind doing that. Then how about this? Is there anybody out there, and speak up, where you would identify a project that you would not recommend any amount? I hear nobody. Okay.
I have
Okay.
Tom O'Brien.
Yes, Tom.
I raised my hand. I guess it didn't show.
Okay. Okay, Tom, would you would, there is an application that you would not recommend any amount on?
Yes.
And would you share that with us?
Number 12.
Number 12.
Outward Park lighting improvements. I'm new to this, but I just been reading the guidelines for recreation, and I don't see how that fits in. That's all. But you know, like I said, I'm the new person on the block, so maybe people can tell me where I'm wrong or whatever.
No, I think that's worthy of discussion. And anybody else want to weigh in on that as not being eligible for a recreation project?
This is Andy. Could I speak from behalf of the office?
Sure.
I'll leave it to committee members about the sort of policy decision there. But I think in terms of if the request here is for infrastructure improvements of any type that might support recreation or help folks who are doing recreation in that location, I think that would classify within the eligible category. But again, I would defer to the description of the applicant and the committee members' discussion.
What recreation will they be doing with increased lighting, just sitting in benches?
I assume that that's a broader definition of recreation per se, meaning, you know, walking and so forth, but
Very broad.
I would defer to the Parks Department, but I just wanted to note that I think that the eligibility for the type of improvements for as far as the physical work could be broad depending on what is served, which is a valid question you asked. So I guess maybe the Parks folks could speak to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Glenn. I mean, I can easily see that. I mean, I don't know if we're deliberating this particular award now or not, but if people are either fearful of going in when it's dark or then therefore eliminating that problem would make it more available for recreation. So I think that would be one typical way in which this could be considered a recreational improvement. Anyway.
What recreation though?
Oh, just, well, I guess, how do you think of, if walking your dog in the park is not recreation? I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
No, that's not recreation. In my mind.
This is Mike. I've always,
Don. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've always considered passive recreation to be, something that's supportable in the recreation category. I don't think it needs to be active, although I consider walking the dog active because that's about the only thing I do that's active these days.
Wow.
Mike, this is Don Walters, and I have already precluded myself from this vote due to proximity of where I live. However, I thought one of the reasons, and I understand there'd be multiple reasons, is that the reason for the request for lighting was that there was some vandalism or potential, and if the lighting would minimize people hanging around. And maybe that was just an anecdotal comment and was not the primary reason for this request. But I will say, to the extent that was the sole reason, I'm not suggesting that is the sole reason for this request. I would tend to agree with Tom that that would not be recreation. If it's something for security or preventing, vandalism, to me, that's more of a police issue.
Right.
Any other discussion on this? Because we can put it to a vote. Okay. All right. Tom, would you like to put that in the form of a motion? That you move that this project not be considered because it's not appropriately eligible for a recreation project?
Okay, I make a motion that the outward peak lighting improvements of $33,000 does not fit the recreation definition for us.
Okay, is there a
For
second?
CPA.
Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, and there not being a second, then the motion fails. And Tom, thank you for your input, and it's well thought, it's well noted. But this will be considered among the applications as eligible. However, it still remains to be seen if at the end of the day it gets moved. It gets approved for recommendation.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mike. This is Glenn again. Since I spoke up, sort of sounding in favor of it, I think it's a valid point too, saying that hey, if this is like about security, would this not be more appropriately some general, some other come out of some other city fund? And I wonder if what was that?
General funds should come out of general funds.
I wonder if any effort has been made to get it from that source. I'm gonna go try to open that application out to see exactly what it says.
My concern would be if we approve this, I would then go to the Parks Department and tell them to put one up at Atkinson Common, because I want to go for a walk at night.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't because it's too dark and there's a lot of business going on, a lot of strange animals. So I think we'll just see a lot of that. But hey, like I said, I'm new on the block, so maybe I'm out of sight or whatever. But thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would like to speak to it just briefly.
Yes, Joe.
I think of the applications under parks, this might be the one that could be attacked or be the least crucial.
Right.
The difficulty is we have 27 parks and we have almost no staff and very little funding. So the idea of us going to city council and getting these lights is probably nil. But there is an effort, and Lisa and Kim are heading that up, trying to get lighting into the parks so they're used more. So I think if it was a situation where it was this or some of the other items, that I would vote against it, but it's not what you're asking me. So anyhow, I'm just pointing out that the parks is a poor sister.
This is Jane. I think that lighting at night does increase usage as a woman anyway, and I know our city is very safe, but I prefer to walk in well-lit areas at night, and I would love to be able to utilize parks more at night. So that's my theory, that it might be a safety issue, but it is also a usage issue. So it's keeping it in.
And Mike, if I may, I did find call up the application, and what they say is that it meets the criteria of the CPC, and I'll quote here: because it is consistent with the 2017 Newburyport Master Plan goal and our quote, to maintain a high quality of parks, recreational areas, trails, and other open spaces that are safe, attractive, preserve historic resources, and provide a range of active and passive recreational opportunities for all residents and visitors. And close kind of the internal quote, and also the 2020 open space and recreation plan goal. And then it goes on. So they do give justification or at least explanation as to why they feel it does meet the requirements of CPC funding.
Good.
And
Right.
they do go beyond just security, I might add.
Okay. Well, thank you. Then I think having gone through the exercise in terms of whether or not there are any of the applications that would need to be set aside as potentially non-funded, they're all staying on the list. So what I'd like to do is to start from the top. We can have discussion or not, whatever people want to weigh in on. But the way we should approach this is a motion to approve in an amount. And if the movement feels that there ought to be an additional particular condition imposed on that application, which is beyond the general conditions in terms of, reporting quarterly and renewing, asking that unspent funds be renewed after 12 months, that those type of general things, and signing the contract with the city if the appropriation is approved by city council. So keep that in mind. If you think that an application needs a particular condition, that would go with the motion as well. So let's start with the YWCA at Hillside.
Okay, Don Little, I'll recuse myself for this discussion.
Okay, Don, thank you. And that's application requesting $50,000, and it's in the category of affordable housing. And also, if anybody objects to what the category that I have arbitrarily put it in, because I think that's where it belongs, please weigh in. Okay, is there a motion to recommend this application?
This is Don Walters, also move.
Okay, and a second?
Chuck Griffin.
Okay, and in what amount?
50,000.
I agree.
Okay, $50,000. Okay, is there any discussion? No discussion. Okay. Let's do a roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little.
Abstained.
Don's
Oh, I'm sorry. Don abstained. Sorry about that. Paul Healy.
Yes.
Mark's not here. Don Walters.
Yes.
Chuck Griffin.
Yes.
Tom O'Brien.
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
The chair votes yes.
Right.
Okay. Next application by the Affordable Housing Trust, the Newburyport Rental Assistance. Requested amount $200,000 in the category of affordable housing. Is there a motion?
I'll make
I'll
a
make
motion that we support it for $200,000.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Next item, Cushing House Landscape application by the Historical Society of Old Newbury.
Did you skip over the?
I'm sorry,
item out?
missed one. Got my reading glasses on here. Custom House Door Restoration by the Newburyport Maritime Society, Inc., requesting $43,832 for historical preservation. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we fund it to the full 43,832.
No, I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Mike Doucette says yes. Okay. Now we're down to the Cushing House landscape brought to us by the Historical Society of Old Newbury, requesting $45,717 for historic preservation category. Is there a motion?
Yeah, this is Glenn. I'll be happy to move that we give them the award in the amount requested, the 45,717.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, next item. Garrison Birthplace Signage, applicant Newburyport Preservation Trust.
I make a
Requesting-
motion. I make a motion. We fund it in the 1800.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll, any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question. Do I remember correctly that this was reduced because they got some funding from another source? Is that what happened on this? No, originally they were asking for more money.
That sounds right, yes.
Yeah, I
okay.
believe that's correct, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we got a motion, a second, any discussion? Okay, roll call, Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, next item, Open Space Reserve Fund from the Open Space Committee requesting that $100,000 be placed in the Open Space Reserve account. I'll move that be recommended in the full amount of $100,000.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
This is Don. I guess with respect to you, Mike, as being sponsor for open space, in your mind, do we ever approach a limit? And I'm not suggesting that the incremental $100,000 is a limit, but I'm just curious. Do you in your mind think eventually $1 million is satisfactory, $2 million? I'm just kind of curious if you ever see there's an upper bound, or do you continue to see this increase without an upper limit?
I haven't considered an upper limit because as it has increased, it has been used and decreased again over the years. And also during that time, the cost of land has skyrocketed. So I imagine there is in the collective mind of the committee, there's going to be a time when they say, I think we've got enough walking around money. Let's wait for somebody to come up with a project. So I think in concept, you're probably right.
Well, how much is in there now, Michael? That's
629,000.
Okay, and that's before the 100,000, right?
That's before the 100. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, next, Market Landing Park expansion from the Office of Planning and Development requesting $250,000. And I believe it's listed as the combined category of open space and recreation.
I'll move to approve the full amount, Mike. This is
Okay,
Don Walters.
okay, Don. Second,
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call, Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes,
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay. Next, we have the Lower Atkinson Master Plan Amendment, application by the Parks Department requesting $3,850 in the category of recreation.
I make the motion that we fund it in the full amount.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Roll call, Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
yes,
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Next, we have Bartlett Mall Frog Pond improvements. I think we need to first, let me try this. In considering this application, I move that the scope of the project be amended as set forth in the letter received by the committee and discussed earlier in this meeting, to include any additional design and engineering expenses. Is there a second?
Second, Don.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, just a question. This is Glenn. During that discussion we had earlier about the need for flexibility in the funds, I understand that. The one thing I wasn't clear on was if the engineering, that piece that was kind of indeterminate, needs to be spent for the additional, I think it was engineering reports, whatever. What kind of an impact does that have on the other aspects? In other words, would that therefore mean that some of the other things like the shallow wells and the grant or whatever could either not be done or not be done completely? Or I wasn't quite clear on how that flexibility might impact the plans that were the original plans.
I think it would result in the applicant having to seek other sources of funding, or should the project go over and into another cycle, request additional funds for the additional expense.
Okay. All right, thanks, Mike.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call on the amendment to the scope of this project. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
yes,
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien. Tom? Did we lose Tom O'Brien?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. We didn't lose you. You're voting yes. Okay. Glenn Richard.
Yes.
Okay, chair votes yes. Okay, on the application itself, is there a motion to recommend and in what amount? Anybody want to recommend this?
The Swan.
Yeah, we're still on Bartlett Mall Frog Pond improvements.
Right.
Okay.
I thought we just voted that yes.
No, we just voted the scope. So now we're voting on the application with the expanded scope.
I make the motion that we fund it 100%.
Okay.
Second, Ms. Jane.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
yes,
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes, I think I'm confused because it doesn't seem like there's just one line item. So I'm confused as to why they're two separate votes.
Well, there was a vote to accept the request to enlarge the scope of this project.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay.
That was vote number one.
Right.
This,
Got it.
this is,
got it.
this is to recommend the project at the
Yep.
full amount.
Yep. Got it. Got it. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I can vote yes.
Okay, chair votes yes. Okay, next we have the restoration of the Swan fountain at the Bartlett Mall by the Parks Department and Commission at the amount of $126,000. Is there a motion?
I move that we recommend the full amount, 126,000 for that project.
Yeah. This is Glenn. I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mike, this is Don. You mentioned earlier about perhaps providing some conditions or condition. The one question or condition that I would feel a bit more comfortable with is the following concern and how that concern might be addressed with respect to a specific delivery item by the consultant to address this. And that is, as Chuck clearly said earlier, we're going to encapsulate this with this material, whatever. And as we all know, iron will rust due to oxidation. And I appreciate that encapsulating it. And I guess, Chuck, it was clear to me, are we encapsulating both the inside and the outside, or
Yes.
where the water path is going?
Yes, it's cleaned inside and
that's
out
what I
and encapsulated inside and out.
Right. So the only question I have with respect to that, and admittedly, my metallurgy is quite old since I was in school. My concern, if there was any residual oxygen level in the actual iron once you encapsulate it, that incremental oxygen level is possible that it could create rust and in turn provide some delamination. That may not be the case, anyone, but it sure would be nice for an expert to confirm once we encapsulate it, there's no chance for, and assuming it's properly applied and appropriate surface preparation before you put it on, et cetera, that there will be no delamination for at least, I don't know what the guarantee product is for 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years, but that's my only concern. And I surely will defer to the Parks Commission if they vetted this and they're very confident that's not the case, then no need to put that in.
Okay, so you are, I guess, are you requesting a specific condition be put in the recommendation that we approve the money so long as they get the a guarantee of no lamination?
Correct.
Okay, I would like to consider that as your motion to amend the motion that's before us to approve, and the motion to amend is to include that condition. Is there a second?
And just to be clear, the amendment would be to have that they would be required to get some guarantee. We haven't specified for how many years that against failure due to this delamination due to oxidation. Is that what we're talking
Correct.
about?
That's correct.
Okay, we're back to, is there a second to that motion to amend?
Yeah, I'm willing to second it. I wonder if we should be a little more specific as to so that the Parks Department knows, what it is they would need to do to satisfy this, like, written assurance or guarantee of X number of years and what value of X and so on.
Yeah, okay, with the motion made and seconded to amend by inserting that condition, we'll open that to discussion now. Is there any other discussion?
I agree with Glenn. We need to be more specific, it sounds like to me. And I don't know how long, I could look in maybe it's even in the application. I don't know how long this is feasibly able to last. So I wouldn't want to put in an arbitrary number.
This is Andy. I would agree that even for the clarity of the appropriation that the city council would be making, I agree with Glenn. We'd want to be specific about if there's a specific deliverable that would have to be provided by the consultant or the person doing the work. But I also agree that you might want to be concerned about putting something that requires protection in perpetuity, because that's not realistic either. So.
Yeah, yeah.
So since I made the motion, is it appropriate, we could approve this or put some conditional improvement and ask the parks to come back and do a bit more research and find out what is the current technology with respect to this? You know, my initial reaction would have been, I'm familiar with using inorganic zinc with different primers and epoxy and polyurethane on steel. And I know that's for 30 years, you could get something, but I'll admit I'm not familiar with this type of application, and it sounds like it's a different coating. So it seems to me that the committee here agrees there should be perhaps some type of guarantee, and I think again, I'm just suggesting if with the Parks Commission consider going back and just delving into a little bit more, and when they put out that specification, you know, provide some type of a guarantee, a warranty, I should say.
I don't recall the specific application contents. Andy, if you could pull that up for us, and whether or not there is a, you know, the specs are already out there, or whether they just have a ballpark figure from somebody who's willing to do the type of painting that is described in the application.
Yeah, I don't know whether Lee's Reed, the Parks Director who's here, could speak to that, but.
I am here. As far as I know, we have not discussed any guarantee in terms of delamination. We certainly could do some more research in that respect.
Well, may I speak to it just briefly? You know, there's probably 20 some pages of the different processes that are proposed. I really question whether you're going to be able to find anybody that's going to warranty a certain number of years. As you know, this iron's in bad shape, and they're going to be brazing a lot of it. They do a lot of that kind of work. The specification is mostly from them, not from us. There are other companies that do it. And so in the end of the day, they're going to have to bid this and be competitive. But I asked them for the best specification they knew, and they took this Navy specification and say it's rarely done, but this is what we propose. That's where it comes from.
It hasn't been put out on the street yet.
Oh, no, none of this.
None of it has.
So have to be bid. Yeah.
The condition could be, and the reason I say this is I get nervous trying to get in the weeds in something as technical as this, and also requiring something that could, you know, really blow the budget. You know, somebody will give you a guarantee as long as they make a, you know, big chunk on the front end.
Yeah, it's kind of open to who's the greatest liar at that point, right?
Yeah. But certainly we could suggest that the specifications solicit information on guarantee for delamination, guarantee against delamination, and leave it at that, and then see what the market brings them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm happy to withdraw this. Again, I'm looking in your application where it talks about from Cassidy Brothers Forge Incorporated, and you know it talks about the immersion, the SSPC, surface prep one. I understand all this commercial blast finishes. My concern, it talks about approved coating fit. It doesn't say alternative. I'm sure the Parks Commission will do it. All I'm saying, folks, what I don't want to see happen in 3-4 years when this comes in, and all of a sudden that's delaminating on the outside. We sometimes see painters do that on that. I just want to be sure that there's appropriate attention to detail and specificity under a performance spec, that we don't see this thing delaminating because it's so visible in the public eye. That's all.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
and I agree with you, Mike. I'm not trying to micromanage this at all. I'm surely not in the weeds. It's whatever it is. I just want to be sure that everyone is open with their eyes wide open. That's all.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in all candor with this, we're really looking to the integrity and the history of that company involved. I don't know anybody that really, I mean, we'd have to get a big time consultant, which we have not done on this, to advise us on what that finish should be. We could do that. this group, as you probably know, if you know of them, they're a nationwide group that's used by the historic commissions in different locations on valuable properties.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm going on. And I question whether anybody speaking honestly can put a number of years on it.
Yeah, Chuck, this is Glenn again. I'm just looking at their application now, and there is this 7-page document on moisture cure urethane specification, right? So I hear what you're saying. And I think, you're probably right that no one's going to really say, okay, we ironclad guarantee this for X years or whatever, but because there are so many variables, I think maybe I would be satisfied at least with the assurance that this is a pretty detailed and thorough document that says what they're going to do. Just the assurance that, yes, this is, and maybe you already have this, that Cassidy's quote says, here's our quote, and this is the procedure we're going to follow. This one detailed on these 7 pages.
And that's likely what the contract is going to say.
Yeah, that's the quote. That is a bid based on those guarantees.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's what we have in front of us.
Okay, because that, to me, that, I hadn't really looked this deeply into it, but now that I'm looking through this, I think I personally would feel pretty comfortable that the job is about as good as it's going to get.
Yes,
Tom,
Mike, if I'm allowed to withdraw my motion and move this on, I'm happy to do that. I guess, I don't know, Glenn, whether you have to approve it also, but I'm happy to withdraw my motion.
I'd be okay with that. Did you see this 7-page thing?
I did. That's what I was reading for when I was talking about the SB1.
Okay.
I've been looking at that for the last 10 minutes or so.
Okay. Okay.
Don, do you withdraw your motion?
I do.
Okay. Okay, then, is there any other discussion about the motion to approve this project in the full amount? No other discussion. We'll take a roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, next we have the restoration of Knock Middle School tennis courts by the Parks Department and the Friends of Newburyport Tennis, requesting $175,000 in the category of recreation.
I make a motion that we fund it in full amount.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
And,
Next week.
Before we move, it was muted before, so I couldn't get this out quickly enough. That's just that since the time we first talked about this, now there was some concern. One of the reasons for this restoration was because the court was not the regulation size, and it occurred to me since then that I had experience with something like that at my college I went to. They made their swimming pool I think they made it 25 yards instead of 25 meters. And as a result, they couldn't set any official records. There was a lot of stuff they couldn't qualify for. And I'd forgotten all about that, but this brought that to mind. So it is it's not a trivial thing. It's a real thing to have things meet the regulations. Anyway, I just wanted to share that little.
May I speak to that?
Sure.
So this is Lisa Reed, Parks Director. The application that we made to the USTA was denied because the court was not regulation size. However, the application we have before you turns the orientation of the court in such a way that it can be made regulation size.
Yes, that was my understanding. And my understanding, this is Glenn again, that would rotate it 90 degrees and it would make it regulation size, would it not?
That's correct. I'm sorry. I guess I misunderstood your previous comment. Yeah. That is correct.
All right, next project is the Atwood Park lighting project by the Parks Department and Parks Commission requesting $33,000. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the full amount for this project.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mike, I'm recusing myself on this motion.
Who's that?
Don Walters.
Oh, Don? Okay. All righty.
The only discussion I would have, Mike, is that I did review the application again, and after having done that, I feel that I'm quite comfortable being in favor of it, and that it is a legitimate thing. I mean, it is debatable, shouldn't the city pay for it and so on, but given its location, its popularity, and everything else, I feel quite comfortable supporting it.
All right.
Any other discussion?
I've already said my piece.
Okay, Tom. Thank you. Okay, roll call vote. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters, so he is recused. Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
No.
Glenn Richards,
Yes.
chair votes yes. Okay. So we have voted to recommend a total of $1,215,234, which was still somewhat less than the available that we have. I don't think we need to do anything tonight about that extra $3,000 because it would automatically, since it's not going out the door, would stay in the community preservation account unattributable. Okay. That was fun in a different kind of way, guys, because we didn't have to rob Peter and pay Paul.
Thank you all for your support.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you much.
Okay, Andy, is there any update you need to?
Point of
present?
order, do we need to vote to approve the bonds and admin?
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Dawn. I think.
No, I do too. Absolutely. I just losing my touch here. All right, we have, as a matter of formality, since we got to pay the bonds anyway out of the fund, referencing the two FY22 obligations for bond payments coming up of the stadium bond in the amount of $127,080 and the Cherry Hill bond payment of $11,940. Do I hear a motion to recommend the payment of those two bond payments?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. Next, we have carried the amount of $12,000 to cover our administrative support expenses each year for the last umpteen years. And it is what we don't spend gets rolled forward. And this is the amount that I think we cover. We are allowed under the statute to go up to 5%. So I move that we recommend the allocation of $12,000 of CPA funds toward our administrative expenses.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Where does that come from, Michael? I'm sorry I have to ask so many questions,
Oh,
but
no,
my-
no, that's absolutely
and
fine.
I feel such a
we
newbie
have-
here.
We help support the Caitlin's salary in a percentage since part of her job
Right.
is directly in support of us. We pay the Community Preservation Coalition dues out of that. We pay our note keeper and minute taker out of that. And we pay the advertising expenses for our annual public hearing in October out of that.
Okay, yeah. I guess what I was really asking, and I'm looking at the spreadsheet, and maybe I'm answering my own question. So these obligations we just approved and there's money available beyond what was on the other spreadsheet where we had the projects. I guess falls under the category of undesignated funds. And that's where the money comes from for these things.
Yes, they are
Okay.
obligations, which certainly the bond payments are required. The administration will be an incurred expense.
Right.
And we have, the way this budget was laid out, since those are already quote unquote spoken for,
Right.
and we've just confirmed by vote
Right.
that those can be paid.
Right.
We've been, for the projects, we're dealing with the net number there though.
Right. So that these obligations have already been subtracted from what was totally about. I see it
Right.
now. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is Andy to Glenn's question. That's reflected in the spreadsheet by the, the subtraction there, right? So this is after the
Right.
obligations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did we vote on the administration funds?
Oh,
I
you
don't think
didn't?
so.
No.
Poor
Jane, help me,
Caitlin.
help me, Jane. Did we vote?
No, we haven't voted. We did have a second though, I think, right?
Okay, yeah, we had a second. I'm sure we had a second.
I'll third it then. Let's move.
Yeah, all right. And no further discussion. Roll call on the administration expenses. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
Yes,
Paul Healy,
Yes,
Don Walters,
Yes.
Chuck Griffin,
Yes,
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay. Okay. Then I think when I jumped ahead, I asked Andy if he had anything to update us on.
No, thank you. I certainly would recommend, obviously, we plan on our fall meeting, the public hearing, of course, but I'm not sure whether or not the CPC would need meetings in the next couple of months anyway. So you might want to confirm whatever that next date would be. Other than the approval of minutes, I don't know if there's anything substantive to bring up.
Okay, good. Then I'll move on to the approval of minutes of 4/28/21, which is circulated to the members.
Mhm.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Any discussion? Roll call. Jane Healy,
Yes.
Don Little,
yes,
Paul Healy,
yes,
Don Walters.
I'm abstaining because I was absent.
Okay, thank you. Chuck Griffin,
yes,
Tom O'Brien,
Yes.
Glenn Richards.
Oh, yes.
Okay, chair votes yes. All right. And what I suggest is that you keep on your personal calendars the what is it, the fourth Wednesday? Is that what we're doing?
Correct. Thank you.
Of each month, just keep it open. But generally, we don't need to use one of those dates until October. You'll also, if you could keep it'd be interesting for you to keep track of the order of our recommendations going to City Hall. And the City Council will send it to committee. And that's where you can attend and give additional input as to why you support these applications to the City Council committee. And then once it goes up to the full council, you could attend then as well. I generally try to attend just to answer any questions. So if anybody has anything else to bring before us, let me know now or forever hold your peace.
Although, is that approval of minutes? Is that something that we need to meet to do, or can that be deferred, or what?
We did
There
that.
was
didn't we?
approval of
did.
tonight's minutes that haven't been, drafted yet.
No, we can approve tonight's minutes at our next meeting, whenever that happens.
Oh, so even if it's months down the road?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Flavor.
Hearing no other business, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting, and I'll move to adjourn the meeting. Any second?
Yes.
Second.
Oh, that was a unanimous second. Okay, I'll take a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, everybody. It's well done this year. I really enjoyed everybody's input.
You forgot to ask for the nays.
No.
All
Okay.
right.
Andy, I think you can terminate.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good
Okay,
night,
good night.
Good night.